of events with Lisbeth.
And I think that is everyone on our board. Yesenia is not able to join us. She is our current past president. She had a conflicting meeting, so she was not able to join us this afternoon. But thank you so much. I would like to introduce now, and I'll give you a moment to introduce yourself. From the HR side of the house, we have Shanitha Manuel, who is the interim, and I need to look, interim associate vice chancellor and chief human resource officer here. We have Fabiola, who is our director of talent, learning and human resource services, and David, who is our director of total rewards. And so I will pass it over to you first, Shanitha, and then you can certainly provide a quick introduction, and then we can pass it over to Fabiola and David.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Shanitha Manuel, and I, as Alvin said, I am the interim Chief Human Resources Officer and AVC for Human Resources. And I have been with your university or our university since May, the middle of May.
And we can pass it over to Fabi. Do you want to go next?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fabiola Elizalde. I am the Director of Talent Management in Human Resources.
Thank you, Fabi. And Dave, do you want to go next? Oh, I think you're muted, David.
Second time I've done that. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you. My name is David Ellington. I'm the Director of Total Rewards and Human Resources.
So thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon and sharing some of your information or sharing some of your background. I will actually pass this part of the meeting over to Austin so that she can kind of do some of the engagement with the three of you. So Austin, go ahead and take it away.
Perfect, thanks Alvin. So thank you everyone who registered for the event and pre-submitted some questions. So we're gonna go through some of those questions and gather some responses. As you noted probably in chat here, there is also the option for live questions that we'll try to get to if we have time. You can use the Qualtrics form that is in the chat for that. So with that, we'll go ahead and we're going to start off with Shanitha. So Shanitha, we got a couple questions for you. One of them was, can you share some of your background that brought you to UC Merced, and what are some goals that you have in mind during your time here?
Sure, thank you, Austin. You know, I thought about this and I'm thinking about this rather, and really my road to UC Merced is a very varying road. You know, I have done a number of things. I have worked in higher education for a number of years. I have worked in state government, and I've worked with the legislature in the state of Texas when I was in school. So I've done a lot of things, but my first love is education and higher education, because I am a first generation student. When I was in school, we were called low income first generation students. So I just have a passion for education and higher education, even though my background, my educational background and professional background is not necessarily in education. Well, my first degree is in education. I'm a social studies, social science teacher, certified to teach in 9 through 12. And then I have a law degree. But again, things seem to always bring me back to the education arena. And then it became, okay, how do I serve in education? And I really don't want to be a professor. What do I do? What are the things that I do? And a number of things came up. I've worked with student services, with what we call TRIO programs. I believe you have some TRIO programs here also, I think. And then I've worked with diversity, equity, and inclusion, EEO back in the day, and as well as human resources. And I just kind of, I just gravitated, if you will, wasn't planned, but gravitated to human resources serving probably about 15, 20, 25 years in higher education and human resources. I retired from the University of Missouri system at a school about the size of Merced in, what was that, 17. But I knew I wasn't through working, and I knew I wasn't through working in higher education. And so I decided that one of the things that I can do is work for a finite period of time with a higher education institution that didn't get similar to me and my background in terms of first-gen students in human resources. So I started working with human resources and or diversity and inclusion. And I started working with something called the registry, which placed retired higher education administrators. And so I saw this one and I thought that is very similar to what I did with Missouri S&T. And the students that you serve are students that are very similar to me with similar backgrounds. You know, whether we want to believe it or not, we do tend to gravitate toward things that are similar, that we're familiar with. And so that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here for a year or so. And I'm enjoying every moment of it. And your next question, what are my goals? Which brings me to the year. You know, when you start off in May, when I started off in May, I thought, wow, a year. You know, that's a long time and some of the things that I can get done. And all of a sudden, it's almost November, guys. You know, it's almost November. So a year is not as long as you think it is to do things. So so having that in mind, here's some of the things that are and were my goals. One of the main things that I'm here to help with or to assist with is onboarding a permanent Chief Human Resources Officer. So I will be very, very engaged in working with the committee and working with the campus to onboard someone who really fits this particular position at such a time as this. You know, but when we look at people that we bring on, we not only want to look at the position and the fit, but look at the time, look at what you're trying to do, and then you try to match the individuals that you're bringing on board to where you are in your development. So hopefully I can really be instrumental in helping with that. And one of the things that I really am looking forward to doing, and really not just looking forward to doing, but I am doing it as we speak, basically, is looking at some of the issues and concerns in the structure of human resources on this campus and trying to lay some things out for the new chief. You know, there's some things that I will not be able to accomplish in my time here, but I can lay some things out. So kind of reviewing the structure, reviewing where the gaps are and making some recommendations on how we can assist with filling those gaps. The things that David and Fabi and I are really excited about, and we hope we can do this in November, is start looking at the campus strategic plan and really start developing a human resources strategic plan and making sure that it dovetails in and fits in with where the campus want to go in the future. And then start developing a tactical plan on how we will implement our strategic plan that really is the basis. Well, the campus plan is the basis for our plan. So we're hoping we can get some of that done. We won't get it all done, but some of that done in November. Would you like some more? I can tell you some more things that we're working on. I don't know where you are on your time.
Yeah, I was going to say one of our questions is actually asking about what are some new changes happening in HR. So if you want to work on addressing that, I think we're good to go.
Okay, I will work on that, and I think David and Fabi really have some things to talk about with that in mind too.
Yeah, we have various initiatives and things that are happening. Then some of those the campuses are already heard about. They're coming up soon. So we have something that you've probably not heard about is a new system change. And when I say system, it's one of the HR systems. And but some of you or many of you probably worked with a system called Job Builder. And that's a system where you develop job descriptions. And that system was actually developed in Merced, and then UCOP took that system over. They liked it so much, and so they've actually, it's their system for the last several years. But that system's going to be shut down, and so the system-wide compensation has picked a new system called JD Expert. So we're working very closely with compensation system-wide, and that will be rolling out. It's supposed to be toward the end of the year. You'll hear more information about that coming up, but we're looking forward to that. And hopefully some enhancements we have, which is attached to another system called eDoc. If anybody submits classification or reclassification requests or those types of things, that's done through a system called eDoc that's very outdated. And hopefully this JD Expert may have some workflow on the front end that'll allow us to consider replacing eDoc with JD Expert. Another couple things that are coming up very quickly this week, open enrollment. So that begins this Thursday. You've seen probably the announcement, October 28th through November 19th. There's information on the benefits website, on the HR website, and there's some enhancements to that this year. There's Alex, which is you might have got some information at home on that even. It's a new personal benefits coach that'll help individuals find the plan that fits them best. We've got some enhancements this year to the UC's vision plan that covers a little more cost for contact lenses. And the deadline for entering that is Friday, November 19th. So keep that on, starts this week on Thursday, but the deadline is November 19th for that. And then the last thing I have is the flu vaccine mandate. You've probably seen that come up. That's a mandate again this year. It's first had it last year. That's another, the UCOP has sent out a new president executive order on that. It's a mandate this year. It's a little different this year. This year you have to have the employees, that'll be staff, academic employees, all students will mandated to take the flu vaccine by November 19th or sign a declination of declining to take the vaccine. Fabi, I think you've got a few things.
Yeah, just a couple of big initiatives that that we've been working on, and one that has been requested over some time is around the 360 reviews. So that's something we've been hearing from staff over a period of time. Last year, we had made great strides, great progress in rolling out a pilot for the 360. But of course, we're in the midst of a pandemic and there were several other things happening simultaneously. And at the direction of leadership, we were asked to put that program on hold, but we are revisiting this, the implementation of 360 for this review, this fiscal year. Alongside with that is revisions and revamp to core competencies. So the system, the UC system, through its talent management consortium, revamped the core competencies in 2019, 2020, I believe. And as you all know, we have about 13 competencies, and what the system has done is categorize them into 3 areas where you have achieving results, creating the future, and building relationships. So we have 3 buckets of core competencies, and so that's going to take quite a bit of effort on our part to revamp our appraisal process, our form, to align with these new competencies. And so that also dovetails into the 360 reviews. So step 1 is really looking towards performance appraisals, revamping that process, and then subsequently we'd be rolling out 360s. So the 360 is not an evaluative tool in the sense of a performance appraisal. It is a a development tool. We want to be able to provide real-time feedback to employees and also work with them to put a development plan in place to help address any areas of deficiencies or areas that require further development. So those are two big initiatives that we'll be working on this year. Alongside, there will be more in our, when we go through our engagement survey data, we have some more items in the queue for the campus.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Just want to go through a few more questions that we got submitted to us. One big topic was remote work, right? So staff are certainly asking, how can I advocate for more flexibility in work arrangement or more work, right? I've been doing my role at home for a number of months. Why, you know, when do I need to come back? Why do I need to come back? So if you could talk maybe a little bit about how staff can think about advocating for remote schedules. The second piece, I'll give you a two-pronged question, is what resources are available to supervisors to kind of help them walk through that process or as they get these questions too. So kind of a two-part, I can repeat it if you need me to, but whoever wants to jump in, go right ahead.
I think I'll let Fabi answer that, but before she gets to answering the questions specifically, I just want everyone to know that human resources recognizes that there has been a change. We recognize that the workforce, the workplace, has changed. The future of work is different than it was, 2 years ago. We know that, and we do know that the pandemic forced or required organizations to do things totally different from the way that they're used to. You know, I've always said, and I know I'm taking time, but I've always said the way we work, and really in some ways the way we educate people, was based upon the Industrial Revolution. It was factory oriented. Is you be there, you clock in, you put your widgets together, and you count your widgets, and you clock up. That's no longer the case anymore. We know that. However, to be able to do things effectively where the change can last for a period of time, it needs to be thought out. It needs to be thought out, it needs to be planned, and it needs to be a flexible plan where if we need to pivot, is a word someone on this campus really likes, we can pivot and do things differently. But this is something that administration, executives, as well as all employees, we need to be flexible about and understand that we're in a new age. We're doing things differently, and we're planning for that. Okay, Fabi?
All right, this is the $1 million question. So what can staff do to advocate? I think it's part of, being persuasive and influential and being able to articulate your position, right? I mean, it all begins with having a conversation with your direct supervisor. And the reality is as well, and I think we all know this, is there are some positions that can be performed effectively remotely, while there are other positions that truly cannot, right? There are positions that have to be physically performed on campus or on site. But engaging with your supervisor about the feasibility of the work continuing to be performed remotely, and where there is disagreement or there's gaps or there's challenges, coming together with creative solutions with your supervisor. And, it's also fair to say that, supervisor also has, they have a supervisor, right? So it really is a matter of not only talking necessarily with your supervisor, sometimes that might include your department head, because we also want equitable practices, right? Those are things that we've been talking about. So there needs to be a level of consistency as these requests come in. And I know that the focus is really centered around remote work, but I also just want to throw out there we have flexible work schedules and arrangements that can be put in place that also provide flexibility. It's not necessarily remote, but if you combine the two, it really does provide the ability to be more flexible around these decisions. But it's really looking at the operations. It's making sure that supervisors and managers are being flexible and are being consistent and equitable in their practices. So I would say those are things that employees can do, is again, just having the conversation, being thoughtful. I've seen some individuals come up with proposals, right? They've been able to demonstrate, we've actually outperformed, during this remote period in comparison to being on site. And then Austin, you asked about any resources for supervisors. We have, and I'll drop the link in here in a minute. But we do have curated content on our website that has information and resources that speak to leading through crisis. We have a remote work playbook. There's also a little section around tools and resources for mental health. And then, of course, we have LinkedIn Learning and the UC Learning Center that also offers some virtual courses around managing virtual teams, using the Teams application to connect and communicate. So we do have some tools and resources out there. I'll add that to the chat box, but definitely also another key area for HR to continue to build upon, because I think, as Shanita mentioned earlier, is we're looking to build a sustainable program, not just looking at it isolated from a pandemic perspective.
Thank you, Fabi. And do you have any insight about resources that might be coming out that could help either employees or supervisors who are trying to navigate that happy medium of, maybe some of their teams remote, some isn't, or vice versa? Is there anything kind of on the horizon to keep an eye out for?
Well, Austin, I will say that, actually, Fabi and I attended a HR meeting a couple of weeks ago, and everything was either on EDI, all the sessions, EDI, or on the future of work. And there are a lot of materials in those sessions that, frankly, I just haven't had time to go through and pull out, but I will pull that information out. And so you can look forward to some of the information that we gathered at that point for supervisors, as well as individuals who are planning a sustainable future of work.
And I just got a little note from Kevin, our talent development manager, and he wants to make sure I notify you that we are launching a hybrid resource page in the middle of next month. So more resources are coming.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We have several more questions that got submitted, but I don't know if we'll have time to explore them a little bit in our conversation. I want to leave time for really diving into our staff engagement survey results. But for those who did submit questions that we didn't get to, please know that Staff Assembly will bring those questions into our meetings with HR. We are meeting monthly and discussing things, and I know we even got some into our Qualtrics chat too. So we may have time for more discussion later on, but I really want to give the time that the staff engagement survey results require to kind of get into, and so I'll let us kind of pivot over to that now. So I think pass it back to Alvin.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, David, Fabi, and Shanita for answering those questions. We will certainly get back to those and kind of get more responses in regards to kind of just what was asked. And hopefully maybe we can even do an FAQ or list the responses to those questions on our website. But I know this is kind of what a lot of folks are looking forward to. And so I will go ahead and let me present my screen so that I can share our presentation. So give me 1 second. And so one of the things that I really want to encourage all staff to do, everyone that's attending right now, is to either, as we go through the presentation, utilize the emojis, utilize the chat. We want to hear kind of your reaction. We want to see kind of that reaction because one of the challenges of us not being in person and presenting is, I can't just hear kind of what people are thinking or not thinking, because nobody can hear what people are thinking, right? But kind of see that facial expression, especially since I'm sharing my screen, it's a little bit more of a challenge for me, but I would love to see either in the chat, drop down what your thoughts are. Any questions that you have, feel free to drop it in there. As I'm trying to pull up everything so that I'm as much as possible is in front of me. But please do so, because there is going to be maybe some shocking information in here that may be new to you, or it may not be shocking at all. And if it's not shocking to you, feel free to put it in the chat and let us know why. So with that, I will pass this first slide over to you, Shanitha.
Okay, thank you, Alvin. I'm not going to take up more than 30 seconds on this slide. I am just here to introduce the presentation and to let you know that the individuals who worked on this are from staff, assembly, as well as from human resources, did a superb job. So back to you, Alvin, so we can spend as much time as possible on the results.
Thank you, Shanitha. So just a little bit of background information on the staff engagement survey. We had 359 respondents. So the survey was sent out to 592 individuals who are, again, as you can see here, they're all non-represented staff. And we had a 61 response rate. 61% may seem a little low to you, but from a survey point of view, 61% is actually really good. Normally, surveys at these, with these sizes typically come back at around 30%. And even then at 30%, people tend to see that that's a good response rate. And so we had 61% response rate. So again, 359 individuals responded. The survey is administered by Willis Towers Watson. They are a company that are really great at providing services in regards to this type of surveys. They do provide surveys to higher education, as well as all different types of industries across the nation. And then, of course, this survey itself is sponsored by the Council of UC Staff Assemblies, as well as System-Wide Human Resource. The first survey was offered back in 2012. Surveys are administered every other year. And so the last one that was surveyed was back in 2019. This one was done May 2021 of this year. And so we recently just got the response rates back. So the results of the summary. And so this kind of gives you an idea of what came out. So we identified strengths and most improved. So strengths are image and brand, sustainable engagement, wellness, and then of course, most improved from our last survey in 2019, communication, leadership, as well as supervision. These are areas that we've improved upon or are very strong in. Of course, we also have areas of opportunities. So these are career development, empowerment, empowered culture, specifically in the areas of gender and ethnicity, wellness, and then most declined, and it seems to be a trend since 2017 actually, is retention, career development, and then image and brand again. I want to highlight really quick that image and brand shows up in two areas as well as wellness. Image shows up in our strengths because we, from the results, indicate that we strongly believe in the research mission of the University of California. However, it's also a most declined because of several factors involving how we personally may feel here as a staff individually at UC Merced. And so it's a little bit of a balance between most decline and strength. And in a few slides, we'll also go into a bit of a detail between those reasons. So I really want you to take a look at this screen because it says a lot. And I'm hoping that, as you're looking at this view of where we, UC Merced, stands against our sister campuses, against, the different UC locations, really think about what, why it's so red. What is going on here at UC Merced that might be different from, the other campus locations. And again, I encourage you to utilize kind of the chat or the what is it called? the images, the emojis that you might have to kind of just share some of your thoughts on that. Because this, to me, when I first saw it, with it being so red, is not good. And so I'm going to pause for maybe a couple seconds here to let you take that in, because you can see here, it's not good at all. But, of course, there's always a but this isn't the bottom of the pit, right? We can't see this as, you know, that we've hit rock bottom, because we have not hit rock bottom. We are in an area where we can improve, where there are opportunities to improve upon. And so in our next slide, which displays the differences between UC Merced from 2019, is actually not that bad. We have some areas of growth, and specifically in the area of communication. That has statistically or significantly improved since 2019 when it was first administered. And so that is something that we should be proud of. We did a lot of work over the past 2 years to improve our communications to staff, and so that has increased. We also have areas of improvement where, you know, supervision improved, where we have, you know, leadership improved. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to downplay the results, because it is very, the results aren't that great. But if we sat around and moped about it, and not do anything about it, I think that puts us in a lower position when offered again. And so these are areas of improvement. We certainly can improve upon many of these areas within the next 2 years before our next staff engagement survey is released. So you can see here that it's not too bad. We have areas of improvement from 2019. Compared to overall, there are areas that we can certainly improve upon. But when we compare ourselves to ourselves from 2 years ago, we've improved some. And so I think that's something to take into consideration as well. Austin, I believe this is your slide.
It is, but I wanted to acknowledge
Oh, yeah,
that we
sorry,
got
I
a
didn't
comment.
see
That's
hands.
okay, you're good. I just put it up. So we got a comment. Can we go back to the overall slide with all results? Because we did get a question about, can we find out what is Berkeley Lab and UCSF doing, right? That we aren't. And I think this was something important to point out, but those are both institutions that don't have undergraduate programs, right? So the structure of how they do things is very, very different. And this is definitely something that our leadership picked up on in the results, and that we've picked up on in the results too. We do have colleagues that Alvin and I are both working and collaborating on at Berkeley and San Francisco too, to kind of talk about like what's being done. And so so thank you for that comment, but I just wanted to point out, like, there is a difference in institutionally how the program is structured, like at Berkeley and San Francisco, and our programs, just staffing and programs look very, very differently. So we will continue to look into, you know, what are they doing that's working as well.
Yeah. And just also to note, UCOP is not a teaching institution as well. UCOP obviously is our Office of the President, and they're not shining so bright either. And so there must be something going on at the other two locations that we can learn from.
Okay, now we can talk a little bit about our strengths and opportunities here. So what you see on the slide here are some examples of questions that were administered in the survey, right? So I know that there's, you know, some question about like, well, why is image and brand both a strength and an opportunity, and same for wellness? So one thing I wanted to kind of point out is when you look at the questions of how things were asked favorably, for example, the wellness question, I'll go to the last strength that's pointed out here. My supervisor is supportive of my participation in health or wellness related initiatives and programs offered at my campus location. Compared to, I'll contrast it a little bit with the opportunity question, my organization promotes an environment of physical, mental, and social well-being. So I think what we see here is the difference between staff who feel supported by their direct supervisors compared to what their thoughts are feeling like organizationally being supported. So that's just a little bit of different, how those might show up differently as both a strength and an opportunity. So I will go to back to the first one. I believe strongly in the teaching, research, and public service mission of the UC system. So this is clearly a strength point for all of our staff who feel committed to the system generally, right? But whereas for image or brand related to what it means to be a staff member at UC Merced, right? That is, as Alvin said earlier, is where things like might feel a little bit differently because you're committed to the mission of the university, but maybe because you're not feeling as valued or appreciated by the system, that you're not seeing UC Merced or UC as favorably, even though you're very committed to the mission and what things stand for, right? So just kind of going back through here, my work schedule allows for sufficient flexibility to meet my personal and family needs. We wanted to highlight that this was asked and really highly had a very favorable score while folks were working remotely. So it's kind of feeding back into those that had questions about remote work and how to advocate for remote work too. This tells you right here, right? This was administered in May 2021. We were still majorly remote and kind of talking about the return to campus and things like that. Another opportunity area that we'll talk a little bit more later, and we've had a lot of discussion about, is my campus location provides people with the necessary information and resources to manage their own careers. So this was only a 46% favorable score. So what that tells you is there's really a need there for staff. They want to have more information, and I think key here is the resources to manage careers effectively. I think there's been really big pushes to do a lot of education and advocating for career, but maybe we're finding like the resources aren't there. So you're able to, you can advocate for yourself, but you can't make the funding for your, reclassification just magically appear in your department, right? And so those are definitely conversations that are continuing to be had as well. The last one I want to talk about here is most of the time it is safe to speak up in this organization. So what we find is that this is a really big area of an opportunity of folks not feeling empowered to speak up in this organization. And this is definitely something that Alvin and I advocated really strongly when we presented this to Chancellor's Cabinet, and really invited all of our senior leaders to say, how can you take this feedback and implement it in your division and your area? And this is definitely an area that we'll continue to grow and work on as well. We can flip to the next slide. I kind of talked about this a lot already. So Willis Towers Watson gives you really generalized feedback about like, what are your steps? What are your suggested actions, right? And so this is where, we're really working hard to create some programming and have a lot of really good conversations around what could be created, done, implemented, encouraged, all of the things to meet some of those areas of opportunity.
All right. So before we get into having more dialogue and conversation around formulating a plan in response to the 2021 engagement survey, I want to take an opportunity to provide you all with an update around what progress has been made since the 2019 engagement survey. There were 3 key areas of focus out of the 2019 survey. One is create culture that is based on respect despite differences, information to manage careers effectively, and enough contact with management. And so out of those 3 key areas, we did respond to those. So creating a culture based on respect Since 2019, we offered 5 workshops around civility and hospitable work environments. We've also made significant progress around being able to provide the tools and resources around managing your careers effectively. So one thing that's not on the slide, but in 2019, we hired Kevin Reyes, which many of you might know. He's our talent development manager, but he, when we filled that position, we talked so much about the need to focus on career development, developing programs that are specific to the needs of Merced. And so there's been revamp of our website to make it more user-friendly so you can have ease of accessing our course offerings. We developed the Career Development Connection Series, which is a workshop that assisted staff with learning how to take ownership of their career. Developing our people, that was a series of workshops that was specifically focused around performance management, performance appraisal, so coaching, providing feedback, setting goals. We also developed the Peak Pioneers program, which is very specific to management level positions, talks more about the soft skills of being able to do, how to do the job, how to manage effectively versus your hard skills. And then we introduced the conflict resolution coaching program this was in last year. We did that all virtually as well, also part of some of this engagement feedback. And a huge shout out to Kevin, to Jody from the comms team. In 2020, there was a significant increase in LinkedIn usage. So since 2018, our use of that tool has increased by 312%. So major shout out, staff are definitely taking advantage of that tool. And with regard to ongoing contact with management, staff assembly, I believe took the large lead in making sure that we establish some leadership chats. So since 2019, there have been a total of 18 town halls and leadership discussions, as well as there was the introduction of the newsletter. So didn't cover everything that's here, but just at a glance, we also didn't include everything, but wanted to provide you a sense of where we've made progress since the last engagement survey.
Bobby, there was a question that came in the chat that I'm wondering if you might be able to answer. How do you know if initiatives or efforts were effective, particularly around creating a culture of respect?
So one of the things that we're working on the talent development side of the house is having consistency around evaluation of the courses that we offer. So we started to introduce that at some point last year so we can start to collect some baseline data through that. But also I would say is comparing our progress to against the engagement survey data, because creating a respectful environment, I think, has consistently come up throughout the years. And so we can always look back at where we've made progress out of the engagement survey results. And as far as some action items and plans that have been in the works that we can tie it into the as an action plan out of the engagement survey is you can see here we've lumped 2 specific areas more around career management. Again, that's always been a pressing topic for our staff, but introducing again the 360 reviews, talked a little bit about that earlier. Along with having to revamp core competencies, we're also looking at introducing Competency College, which would break out our offerings by competency, right? So it makes it easy for staff, for managers to be able to go online and be able to pull this information, right? If I need to develop in communication, what is out there? What can I in real time go and pursue? So we're looking to do some of that. Also some more work around leadership, right? We've also some feedback we get about making sure that our leaders or managers are equipped to perform their jobs. So doing some work around Leadership Now. That program is more specific to those that have an interest in being in a leadership role, haven't been in one, but it gives them exposure to what that role is and what it means and the skills required to be in a manager capacity. Moving beyond bias, that is, I know Kevin and I believe someone else from our team might have attended some training. So this workshop was specifically designed for the California State University and the UC system. So it's a program tailored for the university population. So that's something that, of course, we're also partner with our EDI partners on as we think about rolling that out. But just some initiatives that are in the works that are outlined and queued up in terms of more career management. I think someone's not on mute. And then wellness, David, sorry to put you on the spot, can you chime in a little bit on some of the proposals we have around the wellness programs?
Yeah, those are actually for proposals development. I think in the last couple town halls, and certainly through this last year, there's been growing question and growing need about the issue of providing additional on-site capabilities when it comes to either medical or behavioral health options for staff and academic employees. So we've been hearing this, our discussions with staff assembly as well. They've also been hearing it. So there's been discussions in the works for a while now, but it's a huge lift, and it's a huge lift, especially in an area that's underserved anyway when it comes to options for in the communities, the Central San Joaquin Valley, whether it's medical and behavioral health. So we're in the beginning stages of pulling together more on-site capabilities, and in this regard, such as we've begun with some occupational health capabilities for staff and academic employees. And, we've started in this past year with our first trials in this arena with a third party provider, Work Health Solutions. And they've been handling all of our COVID vaccine records and verifications and compliance issues. And we're slowly moving into other areas with them that seem like they might be good opportunities moving forward, such as, like I spoke about the flu vaccine mandate. So that there's opportunity there. We've discussed workers' comp. So it's a slow move, but I think there's opportunities in our discussions to work on more progress and proposals development. I know we've done in the last couple of weeks in HR, we've done a look system-wide to see what they're doing. And they've got more resources generally than we do, but we're looking at structures and how those work. So hopefully more to come. And the proposals aren't there, but it certainly is a growing need. And then some of it, so one part is providing options. The other part is presentation. So we have resources and such that we have, and a lot of it's on our HR website, but it may not project or present itself well and may not be easy to find. So that's an area that we feel that's a different area of presentation. There are other campuses that we, certainly in the system that we can beg, borrow, and steal from in terms of what theirs look like. And so we need to do some work on that. And I think there's some proposal development that we should do on that as well.
So moving on to the, sorry, I was just going to say, so moving on to this slide, I'll pass it to Austin and Fabi. But just as an FYI to you all, I have now published on our website the staff engagement results. And this way, as we're engaging you, you might be able to access that and take a look at it. But pass it over to you, Fabi and Austin.
All right, so we wanted to take this opportunity to hear from you, get your thoughts as we start to formulate and solidify an action plan for the engagement results. So we touched a little bit on two areas, the career management, but I think one of the areas that we don't necessarily yet have any actionable items in place for is that speak up culture. And so what can we do, what can the institution do to help promote a speak up culture? And we added some questions here to get that creativity going.
We invite you to put it in chat, raise your hand, speak up. Again, this is your chance to provide any feedback based on kind of what we've dropped in here. So I encourage you, let us know. We want to hear from you all.
I would say also, even if you need to kind of, I know we're kind of wrapping up our last couple minutes here, but we invite you, of course, to reach out if you have ideas later in the day or tomorrow or next week. I see someone has their hand raised, so I'll stop there. But continued feedback, I think, is definitely our goal here.
Yeah, go ahead, Wendy. And I see your question in here too, but maybe you might want to ask it live.
Sure. So first, I'll start with the speak up culture. Have you all done any kind of assessment to understand, like, more in depth why staff don't feel safe speaking up in the organization? Because this to me goes back to the issue of like creating a culture of respect. And so I'm wondering, like, how in depth you all have gone into this concept, because I don't know how effective like 5 workshops on creating a culture of respect is going to be for like the day-to-day of of staff on campus if we already have a culture that's not safe for speaking up and people don't feel like there's a culture of respect. So I guess that is kind of a question, is like, how in depth have you looked at this like domain specifically? And do you have any strategies to examine this more in depth? That's the first one. And then the second one is the question I posted on there, which came up because I remembered in that first slide that Alvin showed us with like all the red, we scored pretty low on retention of staff. And as you showed your working forward plan, I didn't see any kind of initiatives designed to work on retention. So I was wondering if you all have any initiatives planned out to impact retention rates of staff, because we seem to have a really high turnover rate.
Yeah, so Wendy, I think you make a good point in regards to have we assessed kind of that speak up culture here? And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if we have, because I haven't seen it, and it might be something that we really should do here. Our purpose really is to push and create that speak up culture, because many of us, especially those of us that have been here for quite some time, we've heard colleagues say something or that, speak up essentially, where then they are later, pulled aside and then, told something else from a, other individual. And so we know that there may not be the most safest speak up culture at this time. And, I don't have a specific answer for you in regards to how we can improve upon it. But, one of the things that we will certainly do is, try to find out how we can improve that culture, because for us to sit and do nothing about it because it's been built into our culture for some time now doesn't make any sense to me. And so we plan to continue to pursue it, and we will continue to advocate for staff to have that voice. I think Shanita mentioned it in one of our meetings, but permission to speak, not that you need permission, not that somebody has to grant you permission, but to know that permission to speak is something that you already have, and you should feel comfortable speaking up. You should feel empowered to speak up if there's something to say. And I'm not saying that you should speak up only about the bad things. I encourage you to speak up about the good things as well. To your second question, I will defer retention to Fabi and team, because maybe I see Kevin's hand raised. I don't know if he was going to respond to that, but I will defer that to HR and team.
Yeah, and retention is definitely a matter of concern across the country, right? I mean, there's staff shortages. Retention is a real thing. And, you know, something Alvin said, not to downplay that, you know, that is a challenge for Merced, but it's also just a reality nationwide. I think one of the key topics on everyone's mind is around the remote work, right? And how we can leverage that to give us that competitive advantage across the country to be able to attract and retain our top talent. So we are pursuing being able to bring forward more conversation with leadership about remote work and a sustainable program that makes sense. We, with HR and Staff Assembly, we presented this deck with leadership, and they engaged. In my opinion, they were open. They had concerns about the data here, and definitely want to be part of that solution. And so I do think that we have that opportunity to continue to engage with leadership on how we can address these issues, and both that's going to require on the retention and on the engagement. And something that Alvin consistently likes to throw out, which I absolutely agree with, it takes absolutely every single one of us to change the culture of the campus. You know, it takes our leaders, it takes our managers, individual contributors to really be impactful and make a difference.
Yeah, and I'm also going to quote Cecil Howard, our interim CDO and Vice Chancellor, but we're not perfect, but we're trying to be perfect at pursuing perfection. I see some of the comments in here that I want to address, but I also want to give a moment to those that have their hands raised. So Priya, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi, I'm driving, so if I'm spotty, if you can't hear me, just let me know. I just want to say, you know, the speak up culture, that's something that, you know, even in 2019, it came up, and I had a moment of clarity when I showed it to Nathan Brostrom, our interim, and then he's like, wow, I can't believe it's so bad. Everyone treats me so nicely. And I said to him, you know, that I think that's one of the things is like, you are the chancellor. Of course, everyone's going to be nice to you. So I think there's a realization that I think there needs to be realization from faculty, from leadership. It's okay, if it's not happening to me, there has to be a recognition it's happening to the staff. And so how do we build agency for staff to speak up? So in any of the presentations going forward, that's what I want to hear from leadership is, okay, I know that I'm hearing what you're saying, but if you're not, like, instead of pointing people to go to HR or go to a class, I wish we can point people to like particular person to go to if something is wrong. If someone came to Staff Assembly and said, hey, Alvin, I'm having an issue with X, Y, and Z, instead of saying, okay, go email this person or email HR, if you can say, email this person, and then follow up with that person, say, how did that go? And I think that's sort of how we build like a speak up culture. And also, you know, go to Staff Assembly meetings. And I think this is for all staff. You know, I've been a huge advocate of Staff Assembly, obviously been very involved in Staff Assembly. So Staff Assembly is a great partner. Like, we take feedback, we meet, I still keep saying we, Staff Assembly meets with leadership very frequently. So they do take your concerns. So attend the meetings. Attending the meetings, I think, is one of the best ways to do it. And for Staff Assembly too, I would say the little bit of I've learned from dealing with the regents and the office of the president is like letter writing campaigns, and you're asked if you write something is even more, you know, like people can see, okay, now there's a document that we can point to. This is what we did for you. And then you can hold people accountable. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Priya. And absolutely, to Mercedes' comment, change absolutely needs to start from the top. It needs to start from the top and trickle down and then all around us, right? Because we are also instruments of change. And so the top must change. So Kevin, sorry, I keep interrupting, but Kevin, go ahead.
Totally okay, Alvin, totally okay. I'll turn on my video because I was looking at one screen and then the other, and I didn't want people to think I was distracted. One of the things I'm just going to echo is what people have said. I think one of the big pieces that we have to do is make sure that while that block of red is impactful, we acknowledge the improvement from our previous, surveys, and know that this is just part of the first steps. This is organizational cultural change. It's going to take time, and we're actually at a place where this all makes sense from our organizational maturity. So if we're comparing ourselves to somewhere like a Lawrence Berkeley National Lab or a UC Berkeley or UCSF, they have a lot of systemized processes in place, things that minimize some of the frustrations that we see, right? And they've established a culture of speak up. And having worked in organizations where I've helped bring that in, the important piece is, like some of our commenters have said, is it does have to start from the top, and it has to be met with listening up and following up, because otherwise then the speaking up stops. And that's really where we are. We're in the kind of moving from the toddler to the adolescent phase, where people are going to have to say, okay, yes, this is the first piece to making these big cultural shifts. And, and like I said, it's just the beginning. And as we start to focus on and see our people as the most important customers in our organization, because our people, nothing gets done without them, then we'll start having a climate and a community that feels valued, that feels heard, that feels responded to. And they're going to, in turn, provide that excellent service to the rest of our customers, right? The students, the community, the donors, the funders, all of that. So I know it can be disheartening to see that big red, but it is just the first steps forward, and we are making progress. And as we all continue to come together and say this is important, and we're not going to stop speaking up because it is important, then I think that's as we'll start to see leadership and others putting things into place to gather that feedback, to act upon it. And I will say that that's already happened. So one of the things that I've been asked to do, and this kind of got derailed by pandemic, we all know that that's happened, but is to start working with some of our campus partners around trying to build up that speak up culture. So it is out there. And I think leadership is aware and wants to make sure that we do have, as the lifeblood, if you will, of the campus, an opportunity to move forward our thoughts, our needs, and have that be heard and responded to. So it's just me trying to, say, look, it's going to take time, but we will get there, and we are making great progress. And I'm grateful for all of you being willing to engage in this conversation and not just throw your hands up and go, well, I'm not heard, so I'm just going to stop speaking up, because that's when you're in trouble.
Thank you for that, Kevin. So we are over time, and I want to be conscientious of that and give back the rest of your time. But I made note of all of the comments provided because, again, our purpose here is really to advocate for staff, and you all have some great comments in here that we will certainly make note of and take back when we meet with leadership to share that information. But with that, I want to just say thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, Shanitha, Fabi, and Dave for being our guests this afternoon. And as Priya mentioned, I encourage you all to join in our staff assembly general meeting, because that is really the opportunity that you can voice your opinions, because we want to hear it. We want to take it back and relay that information to senior management, to leadership, so that we can start this change. So with that, have a great afternoon, and we can call this, the end of our meeting. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Staff assembly members, if you want to stay on a little while longer, I will still be on here.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording because I got to get my kids to the dentist.